I'm here to bring you the live stream from last night, Unfiltered Voices, the conversation between myself and Janine. Before we bring it to you though, I gotta tell you a few things. First is our national organization was launched last night. It was so exciting to do it with our peers, people from the NAS support group, Facebook group, and we're really excited that the Generation O, the national organization for opioid-exposed children, is in existence, and we are excited to bring you programs and support and education, all things to help the families and the children with prenatal opioid exposure. And the first thing we're doing is the month of October, we're launching an awareness campaign. So these pearls that I'm wearing, and this bow tie that my friend here is wearing, are part of our campaign. It's called Pearls and Bow Ties. And for the month of October, you can wear pearls or a bow tie to bring awareness to the opioid-exposed children. And if you don't have pearls at home, or you want one of our unique bow ties, you can go to generationo.org, and for a donation of $25, we will send you out our kit. It includes the bow tie, the pearls, and also a card with talking points, so that when someone asks, why are you wearing pearls every day of October? Or why are you wearing a bow tie every day in October? You can tell them that you're supporting Generation O. You're supporting the children and the families who are raising the prenatally exposed babies. And so before we get into the video, I just want to remind you that at generationo.org, you can also volunteer to be a part of our organization. We're looking for all sorts of people that like to write blog posts about their experiences, people who are good at social media, people who want to do some data entry. There's a whole drop-down menu on our website of different ways you can volunteer. So you're going to see the Unfiltered Voices replay of our live event last night. Janine Norden, who is the founder of the Facebook group NAS Support. She founded it in 2017 when she had an infant with opioid exposure and really had no idea what to do with him. So we are now up to 6,000 plus members, and she's going to tell you her story. Lynette Serlo, founder of the Generation O, National Organization for Opioid-Exposed Children. I'm going to tell you where I come from on the subject, and we just have a conversation. It's lots of fun. I hope you enjoy it. Bye.
It's hard because you're looking at this lovely little child, and he is so smart and just so sarcastic now, and he's just so funny when he does that. But it's hard because I love him to bits and pieces, but the exposure of the drugs has changed his brain chemistry, and that's what other people don't understand. That's not in our community. That when I say they changed the brain chemistry, it's now considered a trauma brain. Mm-hmm. And it takes time for him to process what other people are saying to him. So other people are thinking that he's not listening, or he's not behaving well, but he is. It's his way his brain is functioning. That's the hard thing. And now at 7 years old, we're getting to the point where we're getting a little bit better. We understand a lot more, but there's barely any information out there on NAS, neonatal abstinence syndrome, on children that are adolescents, teenagers, young adults. All the information that we basically have is on the infants, the babies. We need more information on the teenagers, the adolescents, the young adults, the kids that we need help with. And that's what we're hoping to do. So Lynette, what is your story?
Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, yeah.
We've all struggled so much.
Oh, gosh.
But it's so rewarding for me, because as we're all struggling, we still really want to help all the other people. Yeah. I mean, I don't want the other moms raising these kids to have to learn everything the hard way. Like, right. I want to give them instruction.
Right.
And I've learned stuff, you've learned stuff, mm-hmm. and I love the group because of that. Well, my story started out in 2009, which is kind of the kids born then are kind of the oldest ones. Mm-hmm. That's when it really started getting a lot more pregnancies with opioid exposure. And similar to you, we actually took our son home from the hospital, but the doctor, he had just gone through 10 days of withdrawal, and he was still, you know, shaking a little bit when we came in there in the NICU to meet him. And the doctor said, you know, he's fine. He's been through his withdrawals. Just take him home. He's a regular kid. I know. I shudder. And I didn't know any better. I mean,
Right.
and I wasn't a first-time mom either. I had 2 girls already at that point. But, you know, I didn't think anything of it. So I took him home, and I look back now and I'm like, I remember when he was like, I thought he had colic, and I would be looking up colic and I'm like, it doesn't sound like colic, but like he's inconsolable.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do. I just had to let him cry. I mean, had I known like certain ways to hold him and I mean, so much more.
Yeah.
And so basically I didn't know any better. So I didn't do anything. And then I didn't really see much behavior or issues until he was in school. And I'm learning more and more that that's typical because as the demands of life become harder for these kids, that's when they start to slip up. Some of them, if you don't see it earlier, some of them you'll see it from the get-go. But, you know, there's parents that are like, my kid's 2 years old, they're doing great. And I'm like, awesome, but don't leave our Facebook group because you don't know what's coming. So basically, he's 14 now, and he has a lot of struggles. I mean, he's a wonderful kid. He's so smart. I was just answering a question today in the Facebook group about math. And so he understands math. Like you were telling me your son understands math too. Okay. Okay. And your son's in 2nd grade. And my son at 2nd grade, same as your son, understands math. They're so smart. These kids are so smart. But when he got into 3rd grade, they started the speed drills for the multiplication tables.
Oh, goodness.
And so he knows his multiplication tables, but when you put a clock on them, you know, you take the slow processing and you combine that with the high anxiety that these kids have, and he can't perform under a clock. And so that makes him feel like, what's wrong with me? You know, and then he starts to doubt himself. And all of a sudden, I'm not good at math anymore. I'm like, you're amazing at math. You just can't do math like this. You know, you have to take your time. And so we got,
and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's plenty of people without opioid exposure that need time. So then he gets into, I think it was 5th grade, and we get to long division. Now, long division, you have to like, not only there's like this step and this step and this step and this step. And you know, our kids, they can't do multi-step things. They can do 1 step, 2 steps, maybe a 3rd, but they can't do a 5-step thing. No.
And if they're going to try it, they have to have it written down right next to them so they can follow step by step.
Exactly.
And you're not going to be able to do that when you're doing tests or anything like that.
No. And I mean, he's 14 and he's still very smart kid when you have a conversation with him, but he still can't do long division. And it's not only the multi-step, but a lot of our kids, and I think this is related to the optic nerve damage and the vision stuff, but they have dysgraphia where their handwriting is really messy. Well, his handwriting is so messy that he's trying to these columns of numbers. He can't write in columns of numbers. They're all over the place. And if you add the wrong numbers or subtract the wrong numbers, so, you know, now he thinks he's not good at math, but I'll tell you what he's not good at. He's not good at writing. He's not good at high pressure. He's not good at multi-step. You know, it has nothing to do with math. But you give him a math test and he gets a D on it, and everyone thinks these kids aren't smart, they can't do math. And I'm like, it's not math that they can't do. It's all these other things that need to be accommodated.
It's the pressure you're putting on them. That's what's making them crumble. And you got to take the pressure off. These teachers, and I love the teachers, but they have to understand, and I know they're under a time crunch themselves, but they have to understand when we're telling them that our sons, our children think differently. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Our sons and our children think differently. They need to understand what that means. Training them would help other kids, not just NAS kids, but ADHD kids.
Yeah.
Their brains work differently.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to, you know, come across to their teachers. Their brains work differently. And so, you know, you need to be trained in a different aspect. You can't expect a child to come in and go, okay, so I know how to do my multiplications and be a whiz at it.
Yeah.
Because it's just not going to work.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how much he stays home and practices and does flashcards. He can only produce so fast.
Right.
It's not going to change. And it's very similar.
with the behavior, because their behavior is coming from a place where the brain has been injured. The brain has been injured. And so their behavior is coming from like a fight or flight stance.
Yes.
And it's not that they can't behave or that they're too crazy or that they want to, you know, it's just that they can't handle it stuff. They can't, you know, I was again reading earlier today. And so in the brain, when the baby is in utero and opioids come in, that's a very stressful thing for that infant. And so depending on how many times, I mean, over a 9-month pregnancy, how many times are they going to be exposed to opioids? Every time they do that, their body is under all this stress. Well, fetuses aren't made to be under stress. No. They're made to be under this very relaxed, happy little place. But if they're being attacked with the stress over and over again, it actually makes their nervous system, it changes it.
Right.
And so like they come out and they have a changed nervous system, and there's things we can do to help them, but there's ways in which it's never going to not be. It's never going to be normal again.
Right.
You know, it was made in a certain way under a certain condition, and there's things we can do to help it, but it's always going to be like that. And so my son has been in fight or flight for pretty much 14 years.
Yeah.
And there's been some therapies we've done and some things we've done that have been helpful to him. But overall, that is his natural body's way. Like that's his equator. So my 14-year-old, you know, I learned a lot going through like figuring out what's wrong with him. And I like reading the scientific reports. So I learned all this information. And then our life had all these events happen. And it just so happened that we got another opioid baby in 2020. And we took this one home from the hospital. And as much as like, I was like, oh my gosh, this is another child. I felt like it couldn't have been in a better home because I just had a head full of what to do with the baby. And science had caught up a little bit by then, and medicine had caught up a little bit by then, and early intervention, like everyone knew in 2020 that that's what you do for these babies. So he went immediately to early intervention. And for the first 3 years of his life, we got occupational therapy twice a week. We got physical therapy twice a week. I was watching those women come into my home and work on him. I could see parts of his brain being rewired. And I know that sounds weird, but knowing what is going to happen if they don't do that, and like knowing what, and it was just like, he still has struggles. He still has parts of him that we're going to have to deal with. But there's parts of it that my older one has that he doesn't, because that work was done early and we had really good therapists and they worked him really hard for the first 3 years. So when he turned 3, we had to switch to the school system, and they evaluated him and they're like, he's perfect. He has nothing wrong with him. And so although that was something to celebrate, I know what's coming. And I'm like, please don't take away my services. So now he's 4.5 and we're discussing getting services again.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Because, you know, there's things that they're going to, you know, he is great. You wouldn't notice, like, he doesn't stand out in the classroom of 4-year-olds. But neither does my 14-year-old. You know, his stuff it's way worse at home. It's, you know, that when they're at the place where they think they're safe.
Exactly. I was going to say.
That's where I've described it before as it's similar to living with an alcoholic. Now, I'm a recovered alcoholic, so I feel comfortable saying that. But you don't know what you're going to get from one day to the next. And it's the moodiness, and it comes from his fight or flight. You know, he doesn't want to react to every single pick up your shoes. He doesn't want to scream at me. He doesn't want to say no, but every ask is an attack to him. And so if you feel like you're under attack 24/7, of course you're going to act that way. And so as a parent, I've learned how to handle him. And so with my younger one, I don't give him things that he can explode to. So it seems like he's doing a lot better. But really, it's just because I'm parenting him different.
You know where his limits are.
Exactly.
where the boundaries are with the way his brain works, so you know not to incite that. So yeah,
that's one of the things that's I'm so passionate about getting into the hands of all the other caregivers of these kids.
Right.
It's a whole new way of parenting.
Yeah.
This is not in the parenting books. Neurotypical kids don't need to be parented this way,
Nope.
but ours do. And if you learn a different way of parenting their different brains, you'll get so much better outcomes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the kid is going to stay in that, what's the word that the ODD, defiant. They're going to stay in that defiant place, and they're not being defiant because they want to be defiant. It's just that's the only way they can react to all of the stuff coming at them because of their dysregulation.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of dysregulation, during the first week of school, my son was so dysregulated in the morning because it was a new routine. And we went back to, during summer, he was doing camp. So it was like, let's get up leisurely. Let's do this leisurely. And then school started and it was like, whoa, he was jumping off his bed. He was running around the house. He's like, I'm not getting ready. Da, da, da. And I'm like, okay, we need to approach this differently. We cannot just jump into school. We have to say, okay, we're going to get up 5-10 minutes earlier. So you can have your 5-10 minutes of dysregulation. And then we can calm down and start. But it wasn't like you could just say, calm down. No. You can't do that because that's an attack on them.
It is.
That's us attacking them. And
I don't even calm down when someone tells me to calm down.
No. And so it wasn't even like I could say, okay, let's get your underwear on. Let's get your pants on. Let's get your shirt on. I had to say, okay, in 2 minutes, we're going to get your clothes on for school because today is the first day of school. Today is the first week. So in 2 minutes, you've got 2 minutes to just sit here and think or sit here and run or whatever the case may be. I find with him, if I let him have 5 minutes of just him time right after I wake him up, it's so much easier on all of us. And so that's what we do now is we have 5 minutes of just him time without mommy and daddy being in there. And so he can have his 5 minutes of peace and quiet. And he needs the TV on. He needs a background noise all the time. Yeah. So I put the TV on for him and he has his 5 minutes. Now I'll go in there in 5 minutes and he'll be like, 2 more minutes. Nope. I'm sorry. You had your 5 minutes. We're over. It's time to get ready for school now. And that seems to have helped his dysregulation. But man, that first week of school, that like to kill me the way he was acting and everything. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this. Yeah. And he's only in second grade now. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do this year. I don't know, and as soon as I realized Lynette brought in the dysregulation to me, I didn't even think of that word. And until I realized that he was dysregulated, that's when it changed. That's when I was like, so I changed my thinking to help him.
Yes. Yeah,
and that was the best thing. Right.
He's going to be,
And that was the best thing for our relationship was for me to change the way I think, the way I approach him. Instead of approaching him as a neurotypical child, I approach him as who he is. And he is an individual. He is unique, but I have to approach him as an NAS child, as a child that has a different functioning brain.
Yeah. I find the transitions are the hardest. It can be an easy transition during the day from like, okay, now it's time for dinner. Like my 2 boys, they really struggle to sit at the table. And a lot of that is their sensory stuff and, the hyperactivity, but even like getting them from whatever they're doing to the table, like that's a transition.
Right.
And they need a warning. Okay, 5 minutes until dinner comes. But also the transitions from summertime to school time, or I hate this breaks during the school. We get a week off for Thanksgiving and like it's the last couple of days of the school year and then the whole Thanksgiving break and then coming back. It just like messes them up big time. And, for the people whose kids are still young, I'm from my experience with my 14-year-old, some of that stuff doesn't go away. They still need extra time for a lot of stuff. Right. The processing, the transitions are, it just dysregulates them. between the two of us with a 4-year-old, 7-year-old, 14-year-old,
Yeah.
we're kind of in all the ages right now.
Yeah.
We're in pre-K and high school, and you're in elementary school.
Elementary school, yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it's taking us to change the way we think. And that's a good thing to change. I mean, even if you have a neurotypical child, you should still try to figure out how they work.
Yeah.
You shouldn't just assume that they are neurotypical, so they should be working just normal or normal, because there is no normal. Everybody changes. Everybody's different. And so with us changing our thinking, it helps them deal with things that they need to deal with, we never thought about this stuff. We never thought that doing all the therapies that Lynette did with her 4-year-old. That was awesome. Now, when my son, when he came home, we did early intervention, but he didn't need any of those therapies, they said. And well, immediately upon coming home, I started doing massages on his legs and his arms, because one of the things I saw was that they were tightening up.
Yeah.
So immediately I was like, well, we're going to work on that. We're going to, and they said because I did that, that's why he didn't need the occupational or the physical therapy, was because I already worked all that stuff out.
Right.
And so, yeah. But the only thing he needed was food therapy. He needed to learn how to eat. He still needs to learn how to eat.
There's so much speech therapy in the older kids and feeding in the younger. That's such a thread that goes through these children. My 2 didn't have those, which is weird because they just skipped that piece. But I know a lot of people struggle with that. Yeah. And it's really difficult. Now, my older one has a feeding issue, which is different that I've seen in other children your son's age and up. It's, I guess, a form of picky eating. There's something called ARFID, and it's being afraid of food in a way. And my son barely eats anything, and he would rather eat packaged food and restaurant food. And it's something to do with like his brain is telling him it's not okay, like something might be wrong with it or whatever. He had a little bit of OCD at some point, and some of it's related to that. But I really want to do personally some more research on ARFID in the NAS or opioid-exposed kids community, because I think, I know of some other kids that were exposed that also have it. And I think that there's some link in there. Yeah. Hopefully you won't have that one, but
no, he's a picky eater, but when he was an infant and we started, not an infant, a baby, when we started baby food, he choked. Oh. And choked, gagged, turned blue, had to do the Heimlich.
That's trauma.
All that stuff. And like I said, we had to teach him how to chew. Yeah. And that was, the baby leading food.
Baby-led weaning.
Yeah. I wish I had learned about that, because I think that would have helped him.
Yes.
Because there was actual food going on and not baby food. But his consistency, like always, you start with the cereal. His consistency of cereal, the only cereal that I can get him to take at that time was like almost water, almost just formula, baby food. Wow. Because otherwise anything would choke, gag him to the point where he was turning blue because he stopped breathing and everything. And so now today at 7 years old, he goes to lunch with crackers. He will not eat sandwiches. He just now learned about tortillas, but I cannot put anything on the tortilla but cheese. And so things like that, he just will not touch. He will not. Right now, his biggest food thing is pancakes. And he goes through these moments of hyper focus on food. And only one food at a time. So it's not even like I can go, okay, here's your chicken nuggets and some cheese. No, it's got to be just chicken nuggets or just cheese. Wow. So, and it's
exhausting.
Oh yeah. And especially when you go to the school and they're like, why aren't you feeding your child more? Look, dude, I would love to feed my child more. This is what he eats. I'm not going to fight with him. I've done that before. When you learn not to fight and just deal with it. And he does eat, he eats better at home than at school. So you know what? Lunch is what it is.
Right. There's lots going on in those lunchrooms.
Yeah.
It's, distracting and loud. And so I have an idea. I want to bring us back to the pearls and bow ties for a second. Sure. And then maybe we can go through, because we've been talking. We're not reading this chat. And we can see if there's any questions. So if you have any questions, put them in the feed because we'll answer them now. But in the meantime, I wanted everyone to remember that these pearl and bow tie kits. Here's our bow tie. Generation O is our one of our colors is yellow. We like the sunshine and all the hope and sunshine that brings for all the help that we want to give. But this is the packet you'll get with a $25 donation, and it will have a bow tie and a string of pearls and a little card that helps you talk about what to say when someone says, "Why are you wearing pearls every single day this month?" It tells you some things that you can say to let them know about the struggles that these children and their families have, because we hear about the opioid epidemic all the time, but we don't hear about these kids, and our kids need a voice.
Yes.
So generationo.org is currently full of some resources and links to videos and podcasts. There's some blogs, there's some scientific reports that have been rewritten in plain English so that you can understand what they're saying. And as nice as the website is now, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as we put more and more support in. Nationally, we are focused of helping anyone that can go online can find these resources. And one of the resources will be a directory where they can put in their zip code and they can see where are the early intervention services and where are the developmental pediatricians in their area. And it's going to take us a while to build that, but it's also going to take us some funds to build that.
Right.
So we're looking at some grants, we're applying for them. We're doing a lot of different things to try and get this to the point where someone like you or I, who's having their baby right now, can go online and learn so much of the stuff that we didn't know, because these babies are not going to stop coming anytime soon. And so we need to share with them what we know works and what we know can help them to have the most successful life that they can have. I'm going to pull this down a little bit and see. Do you see anything? I don't even know if we can. Let's see.
I think you got to go. Oh, no.
Oh, no. Oh, here we go. Here we go. All right. So we're looking here. We're looking here to see if you guys are asking us any questions. It looks like you're just chit-chatting. Okay. Oh, hi, Michelle Polizzi. We've spoken before on Facebook. I'm so glad that you're here. And yes, executive function. A lot of people talk about ADHD, but I think more than ADHD, it's problems with executive function. They look a lot of the same, but it's coming from a different part in the brain. So I find it interesting, the difference between those two. Oh, someone's originally from Port Charlotte on the other side of the state.
Oh, wow.
4 teenage. Oh, I know who that is. I think, 4 opioid-exposed teenagers. Yes, I know. That's Lisa. Hi, Lisa. I'm glad you came in. PDA, pathological demand avoided. Oh, yeah. Have you heard about that diagnosis? No. It's more common in the UK. Pathological demand avoidance, PDA.
No.
It's kind of similar to the ODD thing, but it's like the tasks that they're okay doing, they can do. But if they don't want to do it, they're just, our kids, you can't tell them to do anything they don't want to do.
And that actually sounds like my son.
Yeah.
More than the ODD that he was diagnosed with.
Yeah, I agree.
What has been your experience navigating the school system? Oh, when my son starts school and he gets a new teacher, like the beginning of this year, I pulled the teacher aside and I said, look, this is what's going on with my child. He's been diagnosed with ADHD, but it's not typical ADHD. He can go from 0 to 100 in 5 seconds. And sometimes, he's got sensory processing. He's got sensory issues. He'll roll around on the carpet. He'll roll, and rub the carpet. And you're thinking, why are you doing that? Well, that's him needing his sensory input. One morning we were at the school drop off and he was making sorry to say, but fart sounds. That's sensory. That's a sensory input need. So I had to message this teacher and be like, look, he's making fart sounds. I've already told him not to do it in school, but I wanted to let you know that this is what's going on with him. It's a sensory need. He's trying to get some sensory input. Auditory is a really great way. So when that starts, I usually turn the music up a little bit. I find stronger rock and roll to play for him. Usually we listen to very calm music in the car, but when he needs a sensory input auditory, I try to find music that will help him.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it helps. When he was a baby, Frank Sinatra knocked him out.
Wow.
And it was really cool because we love Frank in my family. And so he would start screaming because the car seat was the worst.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't like being confined. And I would put Frank Sinatra on and it would just calm him down. But that's a sensory, that's the auditory, that's the sensory. And that's what he needed at that time. Now he needs the loud rock and roll.
I get that. To answer the same question about working with the schools, it's been hard because, I don't even know what to tell the schools. I don't know. My son can't really do school in the way that school is done. I mean, that's I'm talking about like middle school, high school, when things get a lot more complex and a lot harder. And I tried, he's a freshman in high school. And so in this summer, before he started the high school, I went in to talk to the counselor. And, I wish there was a way I could explain it, but, it's not anything that they're familiar with. And it's not, he needs this one thing. It's a very complex issue and his needs are complex. And the other issue is that he doesn't want to be singled out.
Right.
He's very, since the time he was young, like he gets embarrassed really easily. And he's like Mr. Cool, macho, has all these friends and, everyone loves him. They see him coming down the hall. Everyone loves him. He's got riz. He's got the charisma. But so the last thing he wants is for the teacher to say, okay, come on over here and you're going to get this special accommodation. And I get that. I mean, no one wants to be singled out like that.
No.
And so I really don't know what the answer is. And I feel like if I was confident about what he needed, I could go in there and fight for it.
Right.
I still might not win because this isn't like other diseases or conditions where everyone knows that they exist and this is what you need to do. Hopefully we'll be there one day. And that's one of the things that Generation O wants to do as an organization is really help the kids at school. These are the accommodations that work. These are this is what the teachers need to know. This is what the parents need to know to deal with the school. But I think we're a long way from having a coherent message. And that brings up something else I saw in the questions about this being a spectrum. None of our kids, I really think it's similar to the autism spectrum where, you can have autism and have this combination of symptoms or this combination of symptoms. And I think one day we're going to see that with opioid-exposed kids. They weren't all exposed to the same opioid at the same time. Some of them got it during the early pregnancy, sometimes got them at the late pregnancy. Some had the same amount throughout the whole pregnancy every single day, and others had high and lows. And, that's not going to create a same, outcomes. It's going to be a little bit different. But just in the group, we see the same things over and over and over again. And even if science or the medical community hasn't been able to say, yes, this is from opioids, well, we're all seeing the same thing.
Right.
So you can tell us that it's not, but if we all have a kid that all, we're all struggling in these same areas, at least we're going to tell each other as moms, this is what you do.
Right. And that's what we come together in the group is help out each other. One person might have an experience that's different than ours, but we all listen to each other. And that's what we're doing is we're helping out.
Yeah. I think they're, helping each other out, which is nice. It's just like your group.
Yeah.
On the Facebook page.
That's great. The
National Organization for Opioid-Exposed Children, if people are interested in knowing like what we're doing or what our main focuses are, we have 4 goals. We want to raise awareness of the challenges faced by the opioid-exposed children and their families, because it's hard for both. It's hard for the kids. It's hard for the families. We want to promote early intervention, because we all know that that's the best thing you can do for your kid. After they get through the NICU, and even in the NICU, you know, we've learned that the eat, sleep, console is, you know, that took a while to get to. And now most hospitals are offering the eat, sleep, console.
And not all children go into the NICU after being born.
That's true.
Some of them come out and they don't even have withdrawals, but they're still affected by the opioids. They're still dealing with the withdrawals without looking like it's a withdrawal. Like our sons went through withdrawals. They shook. Mine did 3 weeks in the NICU.
Wow.
And he shook a lot. And especially even today at 7 years old, if he can't handle cutting himself, even in a little paper cut. But if he gets something like that, he's going to start shaking again.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, and it's a trauma experience.
Yeah.
It's a trauma answer, answer, I think I want to say.
Response.
Thank you, response. It's a trauma response. His body remembers going through the withdrawals, and that shaking was a trauma response.
Wow.
His body brings it back. And it's so heart-wrenching to see that.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, though, because that's a really important point, that whether you get an NAS or a NOWS diagnosis at birth or not, you can still be opioid exposed.
Yes.
You know, because if you only got exposed to opioids in the first 6 months of the pregnancy, you're going to have already gone through the withdrawal before you're born at 9 months.
Right.
So yeah, that's why we're the National Organization for Opioid-Exposed Children and not for NAS babies.
Right.
I mean, we kind of use that as a shorthand, but we want to recognize that everyone, whether they get that diagnosis or not, is included. So after Eat, Sleep, Console, then we want to make sure everyone goes to early intervention. And the statistics I've seen are that only about 50% of the kids, and that even seems high, are going through early intervention.
Wow.
And so, you know, if you take your baby home and they're doing fine, you might not be encouraged to do that. You know, why am I going to take all this extra time to take them to all these appointments or whatever?
Still have them checked out.
Yeah.
That's what we did with ours. We still had him checked out, even though he didn't qualify for any of the services. Still have him checked out.
And then after they get through the early intervention, they're going to need long-term support, you know, just because they're not babies anymore. Like I was saying earlier, when the demands of life start to get a little bit harder, you're going to see the cracks. And these children, for the most part, are going to need some types of supports throughout their whole, at least childhood.
Right.
We don't know what happens to them when they're adults. No. You know, and one day we
do
will.
Have a couple of people in our group that are adults that were opioid exposed.
That's true.
And they do tell us what's going on in their lives, and they come in there to support us and let us know there is a future. There is a chance really to you know, become where they are, and here's what they've done to do all that. And they do talk about their experiences in our group.
You're right. I forgot about that. There are. Yeah. So back to the organization's goals. We're raising awareness. We're promoting the early intervention and the long-term support. And we're supporting the caregivers, because we know that doing this work is really exhausting. And, you know, even just being able to talk to someone, because all of us have the experience of going to the mommy group and hearing the things that they're struggling with and being like, oh my God, if only.
Right.
If only I only had to deal with my kid talking back, you know, like, and we talk about what's going on in our house, and it doesn't resonate. You know, it's not the same thing. So we need to support each other. And then, of course, with the organization, we need to secure funding so that we can do bigger things and help more people. So that's kind of where we're going with that. Anything else? Gary says, I have twins that are 10 months old, and we are struggling that they don't eat a lot at one time, but want to eat every 2 hours. Our little boy is always fussing and rubbing his stomach after eating. Poor guy.
Oh.
I wonder, Gary, if the food that they're getting, well, first of all, the frequency, that's common.
Right.
Yeah. These babies, they might have to eat every 2 hours for a long, long time.
Try a pacifier. I know this is weird, and I know everybody's like, no, don't do pacifiers. But it could be, you know, if they're drinking bottles, it could be like a suck need. My son was a high suck need. and that helped him calm down on the needing to eat. But if he's rubbing his stomach, you might want to get a gastroenterologist on that, because it might be that his stomach is not digesting the food correctly. Some of them do have slow stomachs. And so, or you can, rub their stomach, but rub it clockwise. If you rub it counterclockwise, you're going to mess it up.
Yeah.
But rubbing their stomach, like, tickle time, tummy time, bonding time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bonding time. We always bonded with him. And as he's laying in my arms, I would rub his stomach, things like that, even at 10 months old, when the rare time that he was relaxed at 10 months old, he was always a goer. But, rubbing his stomach helped him digest his food a little bit more. But if you're seeing a constant upheaval in their feeding, definitely go and see a GI doctor.
Yeah, and the pacifier thing, I think that's a great idea, because I remember my son too. He had he needed the oral sensory.
Yeah.
Like he needed, even when he didn't necessarily have trouble with feeding, but he needed that oral sensory stuff all the time. And it was interesting what I found out is because he has his whole sensory system is like turned down, like it's low. Like he falls on the ground and he doesn't get hurt all the time. And like his hearing is less, his like everything's less. And so what was happening is his mouth, like he couldn't feel stuff like how we feel, and our mouths are sensitive and we can feel the bottle, whatever. He didn't have that same sensitivity. So he needed more stuff going on to feel the same of what we feel.
Right.
And so that, and also a lot of these babies seem to struggle with dairy. I'm sure at this point, 10 months, you may have already tried other formulas and things like that. But, they come out with their guts are messed up.
Yeah.
Their guts are messed up because not only the opioids, but all the antibiotics they get, because we know when they come out and when they're in the NICU and everything that's going on, these kids get more antibiotics than a kid who doesn't have to go through this would get. And that just kills all the good microbiome stuff in the gut. And so long term, these gut issues, the gut and the brain talk to each other. And, if their guts are messed up, then it translates into stuff going on in the head. And it's like a whole thing that, there's a lot of gut stuff in there. So I don't know how deep, Gary, you want to get into learning about nutrition and gut biomes and stuff like that. But I know that there's a lot of stuff nutritionally that the kids, they need a lot of extra probiotics and nutritional help more than typical kids will need.
Yeah. He says he's got an appointment with his doctor tomorrow, with a pediatrician for it tomorrow. That's great. Definitely let the pediatrician know. And, if they're slowly eating, or, you said they're eating a lot, let them know what the bowel movement is like too, because I know with my son, even at 7, I can't, he has to like literally sit on the toilet for a while before anything good will happen for him. It took a while.
Because of everything is slow?
Yeah.
Wow.
He's got a slow digestive system.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is, normally we go to our pediatricians first, and hopefully you're in an area where the pediatricians are used to dealing with these opioid-exposed babies and have a little bit of helpful advice. But I know a lot of us find that our pediatricians, they just don't know what to do with these kids. Where I live in Florida is not a very high opioid-exposed children region. Like the other drugs are issues where I live. And my pediatrician, I love him to death. I've been with him for almost 18 years, but I do not ask him anything about opioid-exposed kids because he has no clue. He wasn't trained on it. He's not seen a lot of them. And so if whatever your pediatrician says doesn't feel right in your gut, it's okay to get a second opinion. And that's what another thing our organization wants to do is to help, get some of this stuff in the medical school curriculum so that they can know about these babies.
And I was lucky. My pediatrician trained in the NICU with opioid-exposed babies.
That is lucky.
So she knew, like, we saw one pediatrician, and at 3 weeks old, we were swaddling which is the best thing for them. Come to find out, when they put their hands by their face, it's a soothing mechanism.
Oh.
And so when he was swaddling, he was putting his hands up here. And we had one pediatrician tell us, well, he's 3 weeks old. He doesn't need to be swaddled anymore. I was like, but he was, born like, no, he's okay. So then I switched to the other pediatrician. She's like, continue swaddling. It's the best thing for him.
Wow.
And I was like, see, when you have a doctor that knows, it changes everything. It changes everything. So yeah, and we do have nurses and other pediatrician. We have actually a pediatrician in our group now.
Yeah?
Yeah, she joined the other
awesome.
a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
That's awesome. So we've got about 10 more minutes. Not that we have to go on and on. I hope that you guys are enjoying this. Oh my gosh, Johnny!
Yeah,
Hi, buddy. I love you, buddy.
That's awesome that you came on to support your mom.
Yeah, and he's so awesome because I went to a conference once that I brought him to, and he was able to identify himself in the room as, he doesn't always love that I talk about his details, but he knows the reason behind why I'm doing it. And so thank you, buddy. I love you. And tell your other little brother that I love him too.
Oh.
So what else? Oh. Is there a way to search for a pediatrician that has this training? I wish, Nicole. I wish.
think that's part of the directory that you're creating is making it to where we can search for other pediatricians. I wish that there was a way. Yeah, not a lot of pediatricians are acknowledging the NAS.
No, and a lot of it has to do with where you're at too.
Yeah.
What and where they came from, where they trained. Oh, developmental pediatrician. Yes. Have you ever seen a developmental pediatrician?
No.
So the one that
I have one up by us.
You might not. They're pretty rare.
Okay.
And I see Cammie chiming in there that she has one that and you have to a lot of times wait a long time to see them.
Mm-hmm.
The one we saw was amazing because he was very, very experienced, and he had gone through the crack baby epidemic.
Oh, wow.
In the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
And he got interested in substance exposed babies back then. And so he just looked at it in a whole different way.
Mm-hmm.
Like he knew that he didn't really care what substance it was, but he knew that that was going to cause issues in the brain. And so he fixed the problems by looking at the whole kid. And it was a lot of detoxing the kid and giving them a lot of supplements to, help, because they come out without all the right stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a whole different way of looking at helping the child, different than how a pediatrician would do it. Unfortunately, it's this particular pediatrician, he specialized in autistic kids, and there is a lot in our area of those. Mm-hmm. And he just got way too busy. And so then his rates went way up because he was so busy.
Oh,
and, we couldn't afford to go there anymore because it wasn't covered under our insurance. But if you can find one, and if they're covered in your area, definitely.
Now, isn't that interesting that in the 80s, they were dealing with this?
Yeah.
And we're still fighting for the acknowledge of our children. We're still fighting. And not to take anything away, but the fetal alcohol has been around and acknowledged since I don't know when.
They've been
since the 70s, I
50 years. They've been around for 50 years, 51 years.
Yeah. And whereas, we're right there with them, and we're still fighting for the acknowledgement and the support and the training and the teaching of our children.
Well, I know there's a couple of big scientific studies right now because, unfortunately, since there's so many of these children, they've been able to do some bigger, longer range studies. Mm-hmm. And the ones that I'm aware of, the results haven't come out yet.
Okay.
But I think that it's going to take, there's certain powers that be in governmental organizations and stuff, they need the science to say it before they're going to move,
well, of course.
Which is unfortunate. And here we are in the meantime, just trying to help our kids, get through the day. And we haven't, what we haven't talked about yet is how poorly these kids sleep.
Oh, forget it.
Let's mention that one.
My son at 2 years old sleptwalked. He still does. He still
Really?
does. And he sleep talks, which I whatever, I do that. But he sleep talks, he slept walked. He's all over the bed.
Oh.
He one night I went in there to check on him, and his bed is, normally this way, and he was facing this way. His head was against the wall, and I was like, that looks uncomfortable, but okay. Yeah, no.
No, my 14-year-old, he's there's circadian rhythm issues that can come along where, he's a very active outdoors kid, and he'll do everything all day long, and then he goes to fall asleep at night, and he just lays there awake for hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel so bad, but he can't fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And we've tried magnesium, we've tried this, we've tried that. We're currently CBD gummies are working. He doesn't necessarily feel that he's getting more asleep, but we're doing some testing with some brain stuff we're doing right now, and his brain is sleeping better.
Okay.
Whether he feels it or not, and I see a change in his mood too.
Okay.
I see him a little bit more happier and willing to, participate in life.
Yeah, melatonin and magnesium seems to be working right now for mine. It's just getting him to take that.
Yeah.
He won't swallow pills. So his ADHD medicine that he takes, I have to literally crush it up and put it in a little bit of milk for him.
Oh.
Well, and he doesn't take regular milk. He has almond milk.
Okay.
Because he's lactose, as we were talking about earlier.
Right.
He's actually lactose intolerant, but he's the opposite of what you would think a lactose intolerant child is. Instead of going too much, he doesn't go enough.
Oh.
It binds him up.
Okay.
And so he has to drink almond milk. So every morning he gets a little bit of almond milk with his pills, and that's the only way I can get him to take his medicine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's see. Oh, I like what Andrea wrote. It's criminal that there is not an acronym like FASD for opioid-exposed kids or polysubstance exposed kids.
Yeah.
Well, in the meantime, we can call them Generation O, but I agree. They don't have a diagnosis. There are some states where being born with the diagnosis will get you things, but there's so many kids that don't get the diagnosis that are still opioid exposed. And then there's also plenty of states where having the diagnosis doesn't get you anything. So we're definitely not all on the same page.
Judy, my son actually takes the melatonin that is a chewable, and that seems to be working. His chocolate milk or regular milk is only in the morning when he needs to take his medicine for the day. He's on 2 different types of medicine for his ADHD. And I can't get him to swallow it. So I have to crush it or open up the tablet and put it in to his milk. But yeah, no, it works, but he doesn't get that much because the sugar in the chocolate milk. But did you know that sugar works differently on my child?
Really?
Yeah. Like everybody giving him chocolate and candy, he'll maybe spin up for like 5 minutes and then he's calm.
Wow.
And it's very interesting to see him act like that. And so everybody's like, oh, I'm going to give you chocolate. Go right ahead. Go right ahead. You're going to spin him up for 5 minutes and then it calms him down. But coffee doesn't work that way with him. Coffee spins him up.
See, so my girls have different exposures, and one of them has alcohol and cocaine exposure, and caffeine does nothing for her.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And my son claims it doesn't do anything to him, but I still think it kind of does a little bit. I don't know. But yeah, if their systems aren't working right, the medications are going to do different things.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, that's why I say he doesn't have the typical ADHD, because a typical ADHD, you can give him caffeine and it calms him down.
Right.
But mine, it spins up.
Yeah.
So then we stay away from caffeine.
Well, everyone,
try putting it in his milk, Judy. Like I said, I do that with mine, and that seems to, but don't let him know it's in the milk.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah.
Like at first we didn't let him know that he was getting medicine in his milk. Now he's like, does this have my medicine in it? Yes, it does. Please drink it up. So now, and we've been doing this since he was started VPK. So 4 years now. So yeah, try putting it in a little bit of milk. No, if he drinks the chocolate milk, just put a little bit, like that much, just to cover the pill, but crush it up first, because otherwise you're going to be swallowing a pill and they're not going to want to take that.
Or smoothies.
Or
You know,
smoothies,
they can
yeah.
sometimes cover flavors a little bit if
Yeah,
the
or
medication you're
juice,
giving-
whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever your child likes to drink. Try that.
Well, I think we're going to sign off
Okay.
soon. It was wonderful to do this with you.
Yeah.
This is our first time meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we said that in the beginning. But yeah, it's just been great to have everyone interacting. And if you haven't been to generationo.org yet, please stop by. And for the month of October, in addition to wearing your pearls every day, you're going to see some great graphics in the Facebook group. If you're a member of the Facebook group, every single day, we're going to be posting some new facts that have to do with our kids. So maybe you'll learn something as well.
Yeah. Excited about that.
Yeah.
Oh, she's 14. Okay. That's not going to work. Oh, Instagram too, Andrea said.
Yes, Instagram too. We're on Instagram. We're on LinkedIn. You can help us spread the word. And I think even TikTok coming.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna see what we can do to spread the message of support for these kids and their caregivers.
Yeah. Yeah. We're here for everybody.
All right. Well, if you're rewatching this, thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you on the Facebook page or at the website. And you could volunteer, and we'll all be doing this together. So
and if you're watching and you're not part of the NAS group, you can reach out to us and we can discuss it some more if you'd like.
What's the name of the group?
The NAS support group.
It's NAS support in Facebook. Yep.
Yeah, in Facebook. So if you're not part of that and you're looking out, wanting to reach out to Generation O or Lynette or myself, go right ahead and we can discuss more on how you could support us.
Yep. All right. We're going to sign off. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.